Come on, come on, you can do it. Come on, just a little bit more. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. The Genesis GV70 is the brand's latest SUV, but it has some really stiff competition. It has to compete against the Mercedes GLC, the BMW X3, the Audi Q5, and so on. So how does it compare against those established luxury vehicles? Well, let's go for a drive and find out. With the Genesis GV70, you have two engine options. You can get it with a 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that has about 300 horsepower, or you can get it with a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged V6. Under the hood of this GV70 is the 3.5 liter V6, and it produces 375 horsepower and 391 pound-feet of torque. With that much power and a body that weighs 2 tons, the GV70 can accelerate to 100 kilometers an hour in just over 5 seconds, about 5.2. This 3.5 liter twin-turbo V6 has a lot of grunt, and it's low down in the RPM range. That peak torque figure is reached at 1,300 RPMs, and it's sustained all the way up to 4,500 RPMs. So when you put your foot down to accelerate from a stop or to overtake someone, the engine doesn't really need to rev all that much. But speaking of putting your foot down, the throttle response is relaxed and smooth in the Eco and Comfort drive modes. Switch up to Sport or Sport Plus and it quickly sharpens up. One odd characteristic that I noticed is that there is a lot of RPM hang if you freely rev the engine in park or neutral. Thankfully, there is no rev hang when you're driving along. As for fuel economy, with this 3.5 liter V6 engine, the Genesis GV70 is rated for 10 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway and 12.9 liters per 100 kilometers in a city. However, I have noticed that on some trips where I just stick to the city, I'm averaging closer to about 13.5-14 liters per 100 kilometers. However, on a highway, reaching that 10 liters per 100 kilometers target is super easy. And while we're on the subject of the engine, I should also mention that with this V6, the GV70 can tow up to 3,500 pounds. That's the same as the Mercedes GLC 43, but it's a bit less, actually no, it's quite a bit less than the X3 M40i. That one can tow about 4,400 pounds if I remember correctly. Swapping cogs is an 8-speed automatic transmission. Under normal daily driving in Comfort and Eco mode, this transmission is really smooth. However, it's not quite the fastest to react if you decide to put your foot down. But that hesitancy just disappears as soon as you put it into Sport or Sport Plus modes. As well, you can use the steering wheel mounted paddle shifters without any delay. Stopping the 2-ton SUV are 4-piston front brake calipers and single-piston rear calipers. The brake pedal can be set to 2 different modes, normal and sport. The latter makes the pedal overly assisted and sensitive for daily use on city streets, but it provides a lot of stopping force when driving more enthusiastically. Driving around twists and turns in the Genesis GV70, it comes standard with an all-wheel drive system, regardless of which engine you choose. Best of all, this is a rear-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive system. So in certain driving situations, it can actually send 100% of the engine's power to those back wheels. But usually this is just when you're in a straight line and it's completely dry conditions. Also with this Sport Plus trim, which is called the Sport Prestige in the United States, it comes equipped with an electronically controlled limited slip differential on the back. Coupled with the adaptive dampers, the 2022 Genesis GV70 feels athletic and planted on a twisty road. If you're gentle with the throttle and steering inputs, the back end doesn't step out of line and instead it just grips out of a corner. Body roll is well controlled by the adaptive dampers in the Sport Plus mode, but without giving you a harsh ride. In addition to providing cat-like reflexes to the GV70, those adaptive dampers also have an ace up their sleeve. They are paired with a forward-facing camera to scan the road ahead and quickly adjust to any bumps or potholes that the camera may detect. As a result, the ride is fantastic in comfort mode. Actually, even in Sport Plus mode, the ride is really good. So from the moment you step inside the GV70, you think to yourself, this is a Genesis? Because the interior and their use of materials looks fabulous. Leather, 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 aluminum, carbon fiber on this particular trim. It just looks fantastic. However, there are a few things that I do want to say about it. Firstly is the digital display. It is actually a 3D display, so it works the same as the Nintendo 3DS. It's really hard to show it on camera because it doesn't pick up the 3D effect, but trust me, it actually does work. However, my problem with it is that it makes the screen dimmer, as well as the numbers and the dials, they just look much more pixelated and fuzzy when it's in that 3D mode. I'd much rather just leave it in 2D so that it's nice and crisp. The infotainment system is obviously the latest Genesis infotainment system. It is really easy to use, at least in my opinion. I know some others have complained that it might be a little bit too difficult for some. However, I find it really simple to use. And it's displayed on a beautiful 14.5-inch touchscreen. However, the touchscreen is a little bit of a reach, so you can use this rotary knob down here on the center console to control it. The great thing is that it's actually a knob and not a ring like how it is in the Genesis GV80. It's much easier to use than that ring. That ring it was just so frustrating to use. I just used the touchscreen and leaned over a little bit more. But with this rotary knob, it's fantastic. And I also haven't confused it with the gear selector because they both have different textures on the outside. As for the climate control, it's a touchscreen, which I don't personally like that much. I much prefer physical buttons, but it does have haptic feedback. So every time you touch it, it vibrates a little bit. However, like I said, I much prefer physical buttons. And finally, the last thing that I want to mention is this carbon fiber trim. It is real carbon fiber, but they use two different types of weave. So they use the more traditional smaller weave as well as a large square weave. Why not just pick one? This one just looks odd. As for passenger space in the GV70, of course the front occupants are going to have quite a bit of it. Both front seats have power adjustments, but the driver's has more. It has a thigh extension, adjustable bolsters that also firm up when you're in Sport or Sport Plus modes, and it has a body ergonomics feature. It's like a massaging feature, but its main purpose is to prevent your bum or lower back from feeling numb or sore. The back seats are reasonably spacious for adults. Sitting behind my driving position, my knees rub a little bit against the back of the front seats, but I am above average in height. More average height adults will find enough space in the back. The seat backs do recline, but for the utmost in rear passenger comfort, you have to sit behind the front passenger seat. There are a couple of buttons on the side of the seat that allow you to tilt it and move it forward for a lot more legroom. Just don't do it when there's someone sitting in the front, otherwise there's going to be a lot of screaming. In the trunk, the 2022 Genesis GV70 has 818 liters of cargo space with the second row seats upright. Fold them down with levers in the trunk and the cargo capacity increases to 1,611 liters. The 2022 Genesis GV70 starts at $49,000 Canadian with the 2.5-liter engine. To get the 3.5-liter V6 engine, you'll be paying from around $68,500 Canadian. This fully loaded Sport Plus trim will cost you $75,500 Canadian. In the United States, this trim is called the Sport Prestige. So what do you get for your money? Quite a lot of stuff actually. Of course, the GV70 has the same luxury features that you'd expect from an SUV costing this much. Navigation, heated and ventilated front seats, panoramic sunroof, power liftgate, head-up display, surround view cameras, and so on. It's all there. Unique features to the GV70 include a fingerprint scanner that will allow you to lock the driver profile in valet mode. There's also highway driving assist, which is like an enhanced lane centering system, and it does allow you to take your hands off the steering wheel for brief periods. Another cool feature is the remote parking, which you saw at the start of the video. It allows you to get out of the SUV and move it forwards or backwards into a tight parking spot with just a key fob. As for how the Genesis GV70 looks, I'm okay with some design elements, but I'm not really completely sold on others. So for example, I do like the split daytime running lights. I'm okay with the wheels, even though they are a little bit dull looking. And I'm actually okay with the ginormous grille on the front because it doesn't really encompass the entire front end like how it does in the Genesis G80, for example. One thing that I'm still kind of scratching my head about is this right here. The hood doesn't meet flush with the bumper. If my grandma saw that, she would say that they didn't properly bolt this hood on from the factory. I don't understand why it's not flush. Anyway, my favorite thing about the design is actually around the back. So let's go there. Back here, the dual light theme continues with these taillights. The exhaust tips are actually integrated into the back bumper, but they are still fakes. However, my favorite part is the high mount central brake light. How cool is that? Looks awesome. So back to the original question. How does the Genesis GV70 compare against the German and Japanese and even American rivals? Quite well, actually. No, scratch that. Very well. It's a lot of value for your money, and even though the starting price is a little bit more than the BMW X3 or the Mercedes GLC, to have the same features in those cars, you have to really spec them up. And obviously it's going to be more expensive than the GV70. It's also got plenty of power with this V6 engine. It's super comfortable and really quiet on the inside. And honestly, I think that Genesis hit a home run with the GV70. Does it have the same prestige as the BMW or Mercedes badge? Not right now. But eventually, if they keep doing such a good job on their next few cars, I'm pretty sure that one day it'll be in the same breath as Lexus is, for example. If you want to know more about this Genesis GV70, I wrote a more detailed review of it over on my website. You can find that link in the video description. And as always, I will see you in the next car or truck, or most likely it'll be another SUV. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.